Here's a very, very quick concept of websites. The very first websites were called HTML websites. That means someone had to write code that then was converted from your browser into something you see on the screen, just like programming code. That's the very first websites, HTML. Then they came out with products like Dreamweaver that would generate, the products would generate the code for you. This is very cumbersome, has a long learning curve, and lets you do amazing things if you're willing to commit a year of your life learning how to do it. Did you hear the qualifier? Okay, so that's it. Then they came out with something called CMS, Content Management Systems websites. And what they were different than the code in that this was more like a computer program running on another computer versus just dumb instructions being sent out. And I want to contrast these so you at least know kind of the history of websites. So if I were going into an old school library, that's called HTML library, okay? If I'm going into the HTML library and I walk up to the counter and say, where are your books on holography? The librarian would say, go over to the card catalog, look up H, and it'll tell you where you can find the books and where they're located. So I walk over, I look it up, I find it upstairs, I go up and get the book, I take it down, I check it out, and I leave. That's called what I call the HTML library. Then something came along called active content management systems. That's like going into the library and I'm saying, librarian, I'm looking for holography that lets you make holograms in your home. And then all of a sudden the librarian disappears and goes to the card catalog, runs upstairs, finds a box, brings them down, and says, which one do you want? They're already checked out. That is a content management system where the data, when request, uses active programs, information, something running over here, not passive, and gets the content wanted and delivered it. This turned out to be a very effective system, and examples, you've heard the word, hopefully WordPress and Joomla is another one, are content management. They're very powerful, they're very effective, and they take a lot of work and money to build and maintain because since they're running, they have to be maintained. Think like an engine being maintained. They have all types of parts and everything. This used to be the main thing I taught, and I taught WordPress websites. The problem is it's now so advanced and so complicated, it's not easy for someone starting out to just get going. It takes a little bit long learning curve. But over 22% of all the websites in the world run like this. It's called content delivery versus just passively being pulled. Then the next one are what I call drag and drop, or what you see is what you get, where we don't know what's going on in the background, but it makes it easy for us to move things around and make it look the way we want, and everything's managed behind the curtain for us. It usually is much easier to build. This is now my favorite way to do it. And some of these could work like this. In fact, many of them are, but we don't know it. It's all controlled in the background, and this is it. This is now where I recommend most of the micro businesses go to start, unless you have the resources and funds to maintain a WordPress site. This is ideally better often for bigger businesses working. Now, everyone who teaches WordPress is convinced this is the best place to go. I work with businesses with absolutely no money, where there's no one in town to help them, and they can't afford to pay someone $100 an hour or something to fix it. Then I direct them to these. And those are, an example of that would be Wix or Squarespace or something like that. Where do I want you to start? First, web presence. Then an easy to do it yourself website. That's what I recommend for many of them. And also, who are you speaking to? What is your purpose for doing it? And then understanding what are our goals. All of that has to be looped into it.